Chapter 5:15. On the other side, Elvis arrived at the dark dungeon. Males all had night vision, and there was no need for torches or other light sources in the dungeon, so there were no windows here. In the absolute darkness, Elvis and Cole could see each other clearly. Cole's tail was broken, and he looked pathetic and weak. He raised his head to look at Elvis, who was emitting a murderous aura, but he did not show any fear or hatred. He just maintained his usual smile, distant and polite. "Do you want to know where your sons are?" Cole spoke first. Elvis snorted coldly and said, "Not really. You better get rid of them before I find them. That way it might be easier for me to kill you." Cole did not seem surprised and just nodded. "You are indeed a male beast that grew up among the stray beasts. You can be so cold to your own cubs, and not care about life and death." Elvis moved his neck as a warm-up, and then stared coldly at Cole, as though he was ready to attack any time. Cole waved his hands and said, "Don't look at me like that. My tail is broken, and I can't maintain my balance. Don't talk about fighting. Even if you open the door now, I might not be able to escape. I called you here because I have another deal to discuss with you." Elvis said coldly, "Not interested." Cole saw that Elvis was about to turn and leave and sneered, "Not interested in Agu either?" Just as Cole finished his sentence, Elvis's sharp claws had already strangled his neck. His sinister and bloodthirsty eyes emitted a faint blue light, like the stare of the Grim Reaper. It was suffocating and chilling. "I said before, you are not allowed to call him that." Cole could no longer breathe, but his lips maintained a fake smile. He looked back at Elvis's eyes with a hint of provocation. Elvis shook Cole off before he breathed his last. "What do you want to say to me? Hurry up and say it." Cole coughed twice, and then weakly took a few deep breaths. After he had caught his breath, he continued, "You don't care about the life and death of those wolf cubs, but Agu cares a lot. If I return these 4 wolf cubs to you, Agu will definitely be very happy. You don't have to stare at me like that. She has tacitly agreed to address me as Agu." Elvis clenched his teeth, but resisted the urge to tear Cole apart. He did not want to see Gu Mingming suddenly stop talking when she unintentionally mentioned the little wolf pups, then forcefully hold back her emotions and tears, pretending that nothing had happened. Although those 4 fellows kept snatching Gu Mingming away, but he would never do anything that would make Xiaoming sad. Conditions. Elvis did not believe that Cole would be so kind as to give him his life-saving chip just like that. Cole nodded approvingly. "It's impossible to survive after touching your female. Now that I don't have a tail, I've become a crippled beast. Living is better than dying, so I won't beg you to let me go." Elvis laughed coldly. "That's the best." Cole nodded as well, having reached a consensus with Elvis on this point. Then he shook off the dust on his body and said, "If you kill Leah, I will return those 3 wolf pups to you, and even save the unconscious one. I heard Agu call him Qixian, right? What a strange name. It must have been given by Agu." Chapter 5:16. Cole nodded and said, "I want him dead and I want you to kill him personally." Elvis snorted coldly and said, "I refuse." Cole revealed a surprised expression for the first time, and looked at Elvis and asked, "Aren't you jealous that Leah is so good at pleasing Agu? Aren't you worried that he will replace you one day?" Elvis thought about it and said honestly, "Jealous? I have been jealous from the start." Cole continued, "Now that I have given you a dignified reason to get rid of him, even if Agu pursues the matter in the future, you can say that you had no choice but to sacrifice Leah for the little wolf cub. Leah is not Agu's partner. He is just a beast pet. There are people more handsome than him in the Snow Fox tribe. Why not find a more obedient beast pet for Agu? But you actually rejected him? Why? Don't tell me it is because you have gone through life and death with Leah, that you can't bear to kill your own brother. If that is the case, I will be disappointed in stray beasts." Elvis looked at Cole expressionlessly and waited for him to finish before saying, "You are very noisy." Cole choked for a moment. He really could not understand Elvis's thinking. Stray beasts had always been concerned about their own pleasure, and did not care about the consequences. After the mating mark was washed away, he had fully experienced how happy this feeling of not caring about anything was. If he had known that the so-called stray beasts lived such a carefree life, he would have killed Jillian with his own hands long ago. That way, he would definitely not end up like this. Elvis was born a stray beast, and the blood flowing in his veins should be selfish. But he could tolerate having Leah by Gu Mingming's side? Cole did not understand, he really did not understand. If they were in different positions, he would definitely kill Leah without hesitation. Why? Why did you reject me? Cole's eyes were bloodshot and filled with indignation. Elvis said, if Leah dies, Xiaoming will be sad. I will not do anything that will make Xiaoming sad. Cole was taken aback and immediately said, even if Agu will be sad, it will only be for a short while. She will forget about Leah in no time, and by then you. Elvis interrupted Cole's words and said, even if it's just a blink of an eye, I don't want to upset Xiaoming. If you don't have any other conditions, then there's no need to talk about this deal. Compared to the wolf cubs who will put Xiaoming in danger, Leah who can protect her is much more important to me. Seeing that Cole did not speak anymore, Elvis turned to leave. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't kill Cole, why would he waste his breath on him? Elvis had barely taken 2 steps when Cole's voice rang behind him. What if I tell you that the kidnapping of the little wolves and Agu was all planned by Leah? Elvis stood still, turned around and looked at Cole coldly without saying a word. Cole continued, the original plan was to use this kidnapping to get rid of you. Leah would then become Agu's first partner, and I would become Agu's beast pet. This would strengthen the bond between Sauter and the messengers of the beast deity, showing the glory of the messengers tribe again. But your sudden advancement messed up our original plan. So Leah betrayed our agreement at the last minute. Even so, do you still want to keep him? Chapter 517. Cole looked straight into Elvis's eyes and said, what I said is the truth. Elvis sneered and said, if Leah wanted to be the first partner, he would have mated with Xiaoming before winter last year. There's no need to go through so much trouble. And to recreate Sauter's glory? What do you think Sauter is in Lee's eyes? Elvis didn't want to waste any more time talking to Cole, so he stepped on his chest and leaned forward. With a sharp gaze he said, I didn't kill you because Xiaoming couldn't bear to part with those little brats. And also because you have a score to settle with Leah, so I left you to him. But I've always had a bad temper, so I hope you won't waste my time like you did today again. Or else, as a senior of stray beasts, I will properly tell you why stray beasts are feared, hated and yet not dared to provoke them. With that, Elvis kicked Cole away and turned to leave. He did not give Cole any chance to say anything else. When he returned to the stone house, Gu Mingming was already asleep. Leah sat outside the stone house, obviously waiting for Elvis. Seeing that he had returned, he shifted to the side to make some space for Elvis. Did he tell you where the little wolves are? Leah asked. Elvis shook his head and didn't say a word. Leah smiled helplessly and said, I guess he won't say either. Looking for you is most likely to sow discord. Elvis nodded and said, you still want me to go if you know? What a waste of time. Leah shrugged and said helplessly, Mingming wants to know where the little wolves are so badly. Even if there's only a sliver of hope, I still hope that you can pry open his mouth. Elvis glanced sideways at Leah and asked, aren't you afraid that I will be cheated by him? But Leah smiled like a flower and shook his head with his shoulders shaking, saying, even if you believe everything he says, you won't kill me. As long as I don't die and can stay by Mingming's side, I don't mind paying any price. Elvis raised his brows and said, how do you know that I definitely won't kill you? Leah nodded and said with certainty, Mingming likes me a little now. She will definitely be sad if you kill me. Don't you not know how to do things that will make her sad? Elvis laughed as well. You are just being pampered and arrogant. Leah swayed his large tail and said, thanks for the compliment. Elvis turned around to look at Gu Mingming, who was sleeping soundly in the room. She had just turned around, and her little face was facing the direction of the door. Elvis's gaze turned gentle, and he asked softly, looking at the situation today, I don't think Cole will tell us the whereabouts of the little wolves. What do you plan to do next? Lee's gaze was cold as he stared at the moonlight. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Back then, He falsely accused me of having an affair with my father's concubine and banished me from the tribe, turning me into a street rat that everyone hated. Today, I will give him the same punishment for the same crime." Elvis looked at Leah asking, "What do you need me to do?" Leah smiled faintly and turned his gaze towards the house. Looking at that light sleeping face, he chuckled. "Protect Ming Ming well. Don't let anyone hurt her in front of us." Elvis nodded and did not reply. Chapter 518. On the second day, something big happened in Sauder. Gu Mingming used the name of the messenger of the beast deity to gather all the elders, nobles and tribesmen of Sauder. She dressed up and stood on the altar, reciting the lyrics of the English version of Little Apple, with a pious face. "Love plant. Sauder is like Odio, father is like Tay, wife is like Tay." With the first breakthrough, Gu Mingming's sense of shame had been pulled down to a very low level. She could recite this amusing passage in a serious manner without breaking out in laughter, and still maintain a damn solemn expression. Gu Mingming learned from the shamans, witch doctors and those tricksters she had seen on television. She could also play the role of a charlatan with great depth. If it was a modern person, it would definitely be fake. But it was enough to fool those superstitious people who had never seen the world in the wild beast world. When Gu Mingming stomped her feet and glared at the crowd with her round and angry eyes, everyone felt a chill down their spine. Their hearts pounded like drums, beating furiously. Of course, they did not know that although part of the reason for their heart pounding was because of Gu Mingming's bluff, the bigger reason was because Elvis was secretly releasing his beast pressure. It was not a large amount, and was released slowly in coordination with Gu Mingming's movements. So the orcs who were fully focused on Gu Mingming did not realize the real reason why they were feeling afraid. "My beast father said that you have been complaining in your hearts about why I abandoned you, right?" Gu Mingming's gaze swept across the elders below the stage. Seeing them lowering their heads guiltily and not daring to look at her, she guessed that her words had hit them on the spot. Guilty conscience. That was how it behaved. Gu Mingming walked forward slowly and spread her arms wide, showing a deity loving the world. She said with a pained tone, "When Sauder was assisting the previous messenger of the beast deity, how dedicated and loyal were you? But all these years, what have you done? The sacred fire being extinguished was a warning, but you did not notice it and did not repent." The elders knelt on the ground. The matter of the sacred fire being extinguished was definitely a serious illness in their hearts. Although it had been extinguished for hundreds of years, it had always been a huge shadow shrouding Sauder. How afraid were they that the new messenger of the beast deity would pursue this matter? But he didn't expect that he still couldn't avoid it. Gu Mingming ignored them and continued. "Mighty Beast Father said that the Snow Fox clan has already forgotten the prophecy of God. They made a fool out of the divine authority, slandered the son of deity, and chased the witch doctor out of the tribe to be humiliated. This is disrespect to God. In your eyes, do you still have the slightest bit of respect for Lord Beast God?" "Lord Messenger, please calm down. Lord Beast God is wise. Everyone in Sauder does not have the slightest bit of disrespect towards the beast deity." With the elders kneeling down, who else dared to stand up? The vixens of Sauder all knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Gu Mingming. Chapter 519. Great Messenger is wise. This was all Cole's idea. He was the one who wanted to use this method to welcome you back to Sauder. One of the elders spoke up, and everyone immediately agreed with him. Gu Mingming gestured for them to stop, then looked at the elder who spoke up and said, "Sauder doesn't even have a witch doctor. Welcome me back. How are they going to serve me?" The elder wanted to say something, but suddenly did not know what to say. Gu Mingming continued, "The authority of the god is at its peak, and the authority of the god is at its peak. You guys want to welcome me back to a tribe like this?" The elders were dumbfounded by Gu Mingming's words. Gu Mingming turned around and sat on the chair in the middle of the deity altar. Elvis and Leah stood on her left and right, releasing their aura to the fullest. Instantly, everyone's knees turned to jelly, and they knelt on the ground. Gu Mingming raised her head and said, "The original leader of Sauder, Cole, went against the god's will for his own selfish reasons, and framed the successor of the witch doctor Leah. He used his power to suppress the tribe, and forced the tribesmen to betray their conscience, and help the villain do evil. He should be punished for his heinous crimes. However, the son of God Leah had a clear spiritual root and was compassionate. He knelt on the ground and begged the beast deity for 3 days and 3 nights to plead for Cole. The beast deity was moved by his kindness and spared Cole's death sentence, banishing him from the tribe and making him a stray beast forever, on account that all of you were controlled by others and forced by Cole, not of your own free will. The beast deity was lenient and did not pursue the matter further. Are you guys convinced by this judgment? So Cole was the only scapegoat. What else was there to be unconvinced about? The elders took the lead and thanked her profusely. Gu Mengmeng flung her hands and left. She would leave the rest to Leah. Returning to her own little stone house, Gu Mengmeng laid in Elvis's arms and said, "Damn it, pretending to be mysterious is really tiring." Elvis felt a little heartache and gently massaged Gu Mengmeng's shoulders. He said, "Luckily, Lee's name has been cleared, and he is also the son of God that Sauter is most proud of. In the future, he can help you with such matters, and you won't have to make an appearance every now and then." Gu Mengmeng smiled and shook her head. "I really doubt the average intelligence of the Snow Fox tribe. Just what I said just now. No matter how you look at it, it is full of loopholes. How could they believe it?" Elvis smiled. "The words of the strong are the truth. You are the messenger of the beast deity. Of course they would not dare to disobey you." Gu Mengmeng turned around and laid in Elvis's arms, saying, "Sometimes, I really feel that the previous messenger of the beast deity might be a multi-level marketer." How did she brainwash people to make the concept of messenger of the beast deity and beast deity so fantastical that people are still afraid of these 2 titles, even after 1,000 years? No matter how you look at it, I'm just a weakling who doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. What are they afraid of? Elvis played with Gu Mengmeng's hair gently and said, "You are not good at fighting and killing, but you have me and Leah." Gu Mengmeng nodded in realization. "I understand now. I'm just an empty shell. They're really afraid of you and Leah." "No." Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's forehead and said, "They're afraid of your divine authority and the mighty beast deity behind you." Gu Mengmeng was a little dejected. She lowered her head and said, "What bullsh asterisk t divine authority? If that divine authority was really so useful, I would have directly saved my son. Why would I need to go through so much trouble?" Chapter 520. Leah regaining control of the deity's authority was progressing more smoothly than expected. Out of the original 3 fifth-level beasts in Sauter, 2 were dead and 1 was crippled. Under Elvis's absolute suppression, no one dared to show any signs of dissatisfaction. And with 1,000 years of inheritance, they firmly believed that they were the followers of the messenger of the beast deity. Now that the messenger had descended, she wanted Leah to be in charge. So Leah should be in charge. She said Cole deserved to die, so Cole deserved to die. Gu Mengmeng's words were the absolute truth in Sauter. They only needed to obey. There was no need to discuss or question. With Elvis's military protection and Gu Mengmeng's support of the deity's authority, Leah handled the affairs of the tribe like a fish in water. The first thing he did after regaining control was to announce that he would lead the Snow Fox tribe back under the command of the messenger of the beast deity. From then on, there would be no more Sauter tribe, only the followers of the messenger of the beast deity. The messenger was in Saint Nazir, and the Snow Fox tribe was in Saint Nazir. If the messenger went to another tribe, they would also follow her to that tribe. Not loyal to the tribe, only loyal to the messenger. This concept was equivalent to announcing that Saint Nazir had annexed Sauter, but the elders were surprisingly supportive. Perhaps to them, it did not matter if it was Saint Nazir or Sauter, as long as it was the messenger tribe. Even if they changed their names, they would still be the elders under the messenger, and were highly respected. The second thing was to exile Cole. As the saying goes, everyone kicks a wall when it's down. This was probably the situation. Those who used to follow Cole's lead could not be seen anymore. On the day of Cole's exile, Only Leah came to send him off. Leah held Cole's favorite food in his hands and passed it to Cole. Times change, it's just the wheel of fortune. You banished me once and I banished you once. This way we're even. Cole took the food from Lee's hands. He was neither agitated nor resentful. He ate it elegantly and did not look like an exiled person at all. Swallowing the food in his mouth calmly, Cole said, "Aren't you going to kill me to prevent future troubles? Aren't you afraid that I will make a comeback and end up like you today?" Leah smiled faintly. "Afraid? I wasn't even afraid of you when you were high and mighty. Now you're just a crippled beast that's been banished. Yet you want me to be afraid of you?" Cole nodded and said, "You don't have to say such beautiful words. I know you are not killing me, because you want to find the whereabouts of those wolf pups from me. I'm not afraid to tell you directly, those 3 little wolf cubs. I've already asked that snake beast to bring them to the Snake King Valley. Shishuan's antidote is with the 3 wolf cubs. If you want it, ask Agu to look for me at the Snake King Valley. If you're worried, you can accompany her here. But don't forget, that lord in the Snake King Valley isn't a gentleman like me. He only invited Agu. The rest will be treated as trespassers." Lee's face remained calm, and his gaze was calm as he said, "I knew it. Why would the snake tribe not follow their own beast king, and instead come to Sodor to tangle with you?" So it turns out that they had already reached an agreement with the Snake King Valley. Cole nodded, acknowledging Lee's words. After all, that great lord and the great messenger whom Sodor is loyal to have a close relationship. Since their goals are the same, there's naturally no reason for them to not cooperate. Chapter 521. Cole opened his arms wide and put on a "you can do whatever you want" pose. His smile was a little provocative as he lifted his chin and said, "If you kill me, who will bring you to the Snake King Valley? It doesn't matter if those few wolf pups die. You can kill me now. With the son of the messenger of the beast deity accompanying me, I can die in glory." Leah didn't say anything and just gestured for Cole to leave, implying that he was letting Cole leave. Cole shook the beast's skin on his body and smiled at Leah, saying, "You have imitated me for so many years and now it seems like you have some charm. But a fake is still a fake. The next time we meet, it will not be like this." Leah didn't say anything, and just smiled faintly. There was some disdain and indifference in his smile, as well as some nonchalance. Cole didn't say anything else and just turned to leave. Compared to the time when he chased Leah away, the current Cole was much more dignified. But his hatred and indignation were much stronger than Lee's back then. On what basis? These 3 words almost made Cole's eyes drip blood. The moment he turned around, Cole's expression turned sinister and terrifying. But Leah, who was behind him, still had a calm expression. Glancing disdainfully at the sky, a black figure brought Cole away from the shade of the trees. Leah turned around and walked back to Sodor. Oh no, there was no more Sodor in this world. This was now Saint Nazir's territory. Using Gu Mingming's words, it was called a division. The original elders had a secret room specially for discussing work. Gu Mingming used burnt wood ashes to write the words meeting room on it. Leah used his claws to carve out the 3 words bit by bit until it was hollow. Then, he used beast skin to tie the 2 sides and hung it above the door of the secret room. From then on, this secret room had a sacred name, meeting room. Leah fetched Elvis and Gu Mingming and was about to head to the meeting room to discuss about the wolf pups when he met Sandy and Colin along the way. Both of them looked travel-worn, as though they had just arrived at Sodor and did not have the time to rest before coming to look for him. Gu Mingming was always in a good mood when she saw Sandy. She pulled Sandy's little hand and was about to let out her grievances over the past few days when she saw Colin kneeling down at Gu Mingming's feet with a loud thud. He said with a face full of grief and indignation, "Great messenger, please punish me." Gu Mingming was shocked and wanted to ask what had happened. Sandy wiped her tears and held onto Gu Mingming's hand, sobbing, "Gu Mingming, can you not kill Colin? I beg you. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Don't kill Colin, okay?" Gu Mingming looked at Sandy in confusion, and then at Colin. She waved her hands and said, "Can anyone tell me what happened first? Are you two possessed?" Colin moved 2 steps forward and said, "It's not Sandy's fault, it's my fault. As the messenger's guard, I only cared about protecting my own female when you were in danger, and did not fulfill my duty as a guard. When everyone was fighting a bloody battle, I selfishly only cared about protecting my own female, and did not fight for you. As a guard, I am that as a member of Saint Nazir, I am, anyway I am guilty." Sandy shook her head and held on to Gu Mingming's hand, saying, "No, you can't blame Colin. I was too afraid at that time, so I grabbed onto him, and did not let him go to join the battle. I insisted on keeping him by my side. It's all my fault, I am a burden to Colin. If you want to punish someone, punish me. Can you spare Colin? I beg you, don't kill him." Aside from the topic, a foolish person should study more. Look, he can't even come up with a proper sentence to apologize. Chapter 522. Gu Mingming smiled as she helped Colin up. She hugged Sandy and patted her back lightly before pushing Sandy back into Colin's arms. "Leave 2 of the strongest males behind to protect every female. The rest of the tribesmen will participate in the frontal assault. Isn't this Lee's battle plan? Colin and Bode are the strongest in your family. It's not wrong for them to stay behind to protect you. Why should I kill Colin?" Colin said in a simple and honest voice, "Because I'm the emissary's protector, the emissary's shield. When the messenger is in danger, I should be the first to stand in front of her. But Gu Mingming patted Colin's shoulder with a smile. "I am indeed the messenger of the beast deity, but everyone does not have the obligation to risk their lives for me. Emotionally, you protected my most important friend. Logically, you were just following the orders of your superior. So, you did not do anything wrong." But Colin could not win against Gu Mingming in an argument. But he knew in his heart that he was in the wrong in this matter. Elvis wrapped his arms around Gu Mingming's waist gently and pulled her into his arms. He looked at Colin with disdain. "Xiaomeng said that she will not punish you. But after this incident, it has been proven that you are not suitable to be the messenger's guard. From now on, you will be stripped of all your rights and responsibilities. Do you have any objections?" Colin lowered his head. "I have no objections." Elvis nodded. He carried Gu Mingming up. "Oriton will take over your position. If there's nothing else, you guys can go back." "Gu Mingming." Sandy stared at Gu Mingming with her teary eyes. She felt very guilty. When Gu Mingming was in danger and trouble, she only cared about the safety of her own males. She clearly knew what Gu Mingming had been through. But when she stood in front of her, she did not even show a single word of concern. She only cared about helping Colin beg for mercy. She was indeed not a good friend. Gu Mingming returned a smile. She signaled to Sandy that it would be fine. But Sandy's eyes were still red from crying. She cried uncontrollably in Colin's arms. Elvis and Leah carried Gu Mingming to the meeting room. Leah repeated Cole's words to Gu Mingming without missing a single word. Elvis remained silent for a moment. "Leah, stay here and take care of Xiaomeng. I will go to the Snake King Valley to save the little wolf." Leah shook his head and said, "The monster in the Snake King Valley is not at Cole's level. Not to mention that you have just stepped into 5th level. Even someone at the peak of 5th level like Cole would not be able to withstand a single blow from him. You have no chance of winning if you go alone. Let Oriton and Barit stay here to take care of Meng Meng. I'll go with you to the Snake King Valley. Maybe we have a 30% chance of winning." Gu Mingming knocked on the table and said, "If I didn't appear, the 2 of you would have been killed before you even had the chance to see Cole. I don't want you to die for nothing." Elvis frowned and looked at Gu Mingming. "Xiaomeng, you promised not to make me worry anymore." Gu Mingming pulled Elvis's hand and said, "Yeah, so this time I will drag you along with me on this adventure." Leah said, "Mingming, don't fool around." Gu Mingming sat in Elvis's arms and turned to look at Leah, saying, "If that peerless master in the Snake King Valley is really as unfathomable as you guys said, then no matter where I hide, it's only a matter of time before he finds me. Instead of waiting passively for danger to descend on us, why not take the initiative to attack first and gain the upper hand? Aside from the topic, this Snake King is a rather important person. Yeah, actually I quite like him. But I don't like snakes. If we ignore his attributes, this character is still not bad. Babes who are afraid of snakes don't worry. He will not always appear in the novel. The Snake King Valley. Yeah, it's probably just a small instance, and you can leave after finishing it. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. I heard that babes are starting to dislike reading the author's words. Because once the author's words appear, it means that today's update has ended. Hehehe. Yes, that's right, the person saying goodbye is me again. Chapter 523. Leah stared at Gu Mingming quietly for a long time, before finally giving up. He sighed and said, "Give me 3 days, I will settle everything here and then go with you." Gu Mingming shook her head, and placed her little hand on the back of Lee's hand gently. She said, "If I really meet with any mishaps, you have to leave someone outside to save me." Leah clenched his teeth, and could no longer maintain his forced smile. His gaze was like ice shards as he asked word by word, "You want to abandon me?" Gu Mingming chuckled and caressed Lee's face gently. She said, "No, I just want you to guard a place for me to return to. Leave a way out for me. I will be back, I definitely will." Leah held onto Gu Mingming's hand tightly. This was the first time he lost his sense of propriety. He did not care that her wrist was red from his strength and only said, "I don't agree. I won't allow you to leave me alone." Elvis held onto Lee's hand and said, "Calm down, Xiaoming will get hurt." But Leah refused to let go. He glanced sideways at Elvis and said, "How can I calm down? Why don't we swap places? I will accompany Xiaoming to the Snake King Valley while you guard here. Let me see how you can calm down." Gu Mingming patted Elvis's chest and signaled him not to quarrel with Leah. Then, she jumped down from Elvis's arms and took the initiative to hug Leah. She pressed the side of her face against Lee's chest. One of her hands was held tightly by Leah, while the other was wrapped around Lee's waist. Gu Mingming said softly, "Huda and his brothers are my flesh and blood. I can't ignore them no matter what. Now that the Snake King is obviously targeting me, even if I don't go, he will not let me off. Leah, I promise you, no matter what, I will try my best to protect myself, and will not leave you alone. Don't forget, I am the messenger of the beast deity, the biological daughter of the beast deity. The mighty beast deity will definitely protect me. I won't stop you if you want to save the little wolves, but you must bring me along." Leah hugged Gu Mingming tightly, and did not take a single step back. Gu Mingming said, "Saint Nazir and Sauter just went through a huge battle. Now the people's morale is low and both sides are in a state of panic. Other than you, no one can control this situation. I promise you, I will definitely come back in 3 months. Just wait for me for 3 months, okay?" Leah shook his head and furrowed his brows. He used a voice that could tear apart the depths of one's soul, to play out a bone-piercing uneasiness. "Without you, I can't even live for a moment. 3 months. How could he possibly wait? So what if Saint Nazir was destroyed? So what if Sauter was gone? Besides you, there's nothing I can't bear to part with." Elvis stood behind Gu Mingming and said slowly, "Xiaoming this time. I support Leah." Chapter 524. Gu Mingming had originally thought that since she did not mate with Leah, she should not involve Leah in such a dangerous situation. If anything happened to her in the Snake King Valley, then Leah could start a new life after grieving for a period of time. But looking at how the two of them were so compatible, she was afraid that if she did not bring Leah along, not to mention the Snake King Valley, she would not even be able to leave this meeting room. Sighing helplessly, Gu Mingming finally nodded and said, "All right, let's go together." Leah then heaved a sigh of relief, and bit Gu Mingming's lips as a punishment, which eventually turned into a deep kiss. Only when she was almost suffocating did Leah release her reluctantly. Wiping away the saliva on her lips, Lee's long and affectionate eyes held an indescribable gentleness. "Don't ever ask me to stay behind again, understand?" Gu Mingming nodded, and did not struggle anymore. As Gu Mingming was too worried about the children, she could not wait for 3 more days. So the next morning, Gu Mingming handed Qixuan over to Sandy to take care of. Leah instructed Dylan to check on Qixuan's condition at Sandy's house every day, and try his best to stabilize the poison. Then, the 3 of them left the tribe, and headed towards the Snake King Valley, according to the markings left behind by the Eagle Owl tribe. Elvis and Leah took turns to piggyback Gu Mengmeng as they hurried. Gu Mengmeng knew that if she asked herself to walk, it would only slow down the overall speed. So although her heart ached, she remained silent and only forced Elvis and Leah to rest for one night every 3 days. On the 10th day, they arrived at the entrance of a valley. Beside the entrance, leaning against the tree trunk, waiting for them was Ian. Cole never came out after he entered this place. We tried to follow him in, but we couldn't find any trace of him, so the entrance should be nearby. Ian summarized briefly. Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "All right, it's been hard on you. Go back and rest. We will settle the rest ourselves." Ian raised his brows and his sickly face revealed some displeasure. "Settle ourselves? Huh. I'm afraid that before you can even find the entrance, you'll be eaten by the snake beasts everywhere." Gu Mengmeng was taken aback and immediately lowered her head to take a closer look. Indeed, she found traces of a snake in the bushes. She was terrified and instinctively hid in Elvis's arms. Ian said, If it wasn't for you, Elvis, a 5th-level beast, could barely explore this place. Now, even if the two of them were tied together, they wouldn't be able to protect you from so many snake beasts. You're still thinking of doing what you want. Tsk, a burden." Gu Mengmeng was furious, but she could not retort. He could only glare and say, "Then tell me, what should we do?" Ian shook his wings and said, "I'll bring you along to show off and fly." Gu Mengmeng's eyes lit up. She patted Ian's shoulder and said, "Not bad, big brother. Anyone with wings is an angel." Ian coldly snorted, then opened his chest and said, "Hold on tight. Otherwise I won't be responsible if you fall to your death." Chapter 525. Ian did not reply Gu Mengmeng. He just exchanged glances with Leah and Elvis, before flapping his wings and flying away against the wind. Elvis released his beast pressure to prevent the snake beasts from getting close, while Leah used his advantage to search for every possible entrance. Ian was protecting Gu Mengmeng in the air, while using God's view to provide information to Leah and Elvis. The 3 males cooperated well. It should have been a good start. But Gu Mengmeng's body shook. Then she felt herself falling into a state of weightlessness. Looking up, she saw Ian's face turning green. His body could not move at all, as if his acupoints had been sealed. His pupils were starting to lose focus, and he used his last bit of rationality to retract his wings, using his body to protect Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng did not even have the time to scream before she lost consciousness. Cold. Something lightly brushed past Gu Mengmeng's cheek. Frowning, Gu Mengmeng forced her dry eyes open. He wanted to sit up, but he found that he couldn't control his body. Not to mention sitting, he couldn't even lift a finger. The only things she could control were her eyelids and eyeballs. "Awake!" A cold and emotionless voice rang above Gu Mengmeng's head. Gu Mengmeng looked up with a posture that seemed like she was rolling her eyes. She could only see a naked upper body. Judging from the flatness of the chest, it should be a male. But this face was bewitching. She was definitely a cold and aloof elder sister. Leah was also very handsome, like a demon or a deity, but it would not cause people to doubt his gender. But this guy in front of her was like a demon or Rakshasa that crawled out from the 18th level of hell. His demonic aura was so strong that it was mesmerizing. He was just looking at Gu Mengmeng without any expression. But Gu Mengmeng felt as if she had fallen into a cave and was watching Chun Sanyang perform a striptease. Her heart could not help but beat wildly, and Gu Mengmeng even forgot how to breathe. "Nice to look at." The evildoer was neither angry nor happy. He asked in an indifferent and calm tone. Gu Mengmeng was stunned for a moment, before realizing that it was impolite to stare at someone like that. So she quickly retracted her gaze and tried to cough. Realizing that she could still speak, she looked down at the tip of her nose and asked, "May I know you are?" That demon raised his eyebrows and slid his body to the bottom of Gu Mengmeng's face. His cold fingers lifted Gu Mengmeng's chin lightly, and with an unhappy expression he said, "Why aren't you looking at me anymore?" Gu Mengmeng did not hear clearly what the demon said. She just realized that she was lying in the tail of a giant snake. Her mind went blank and without thinking, She roared out loud out of reflex. Ah! That demon frowned and pushed Gu Mingming's chin with his fingers, forcefully interrupting Gu Mingming's shocking biological reaction. He pinched Gu Mingming's cheeks and asked, "Are you afraid of me?" Gu Mingming's and Mingming's expression and said, Gu's s Mingming's expression, Gu's s and King and Mingming's Mingming. Chapter 526. Answer my question or I will eat you up. The demon moved closer to Gu Mingming and opened his mouth, revealing 2 poisonous fangs. Gu Mingming was even more afraid. Damn! A human's mouth could not open so wide. Great king, please spare my life. Gu Mingming stuttered. The demon shut his mouth and looked at Gu Mingming with interest. His cold fingers brushed past her face, and he muttered to himself, "Not as pretty as her, but still interesting." Gu Mingming completely did not understand what the demon was saying, and just looked at him with a guarded and frightened expression. The demon asked, "You are Gu Mingming?" Gu Mingming wanted to nod, but realized that her neck could not move. Not daring to test the demon's patience, she just replied with a yeah while trembling. The demon said, "Help me think of a nickname, one that is different from everyone else." Gu Mingming blinked her eyes at the demon and said, Great king, please spare my life." The demon's face turned cold and he said, "You want me to call you Great King? Please spare my life?" Gu Mingming, huh? The demon released his hand, and his pupils turned vertical in front of Gu Mingming. He said, "I will only count to 3. If you can't think of anything, I will eat you up." Gu Mingming was dumbfounded and completely did not know what was going on. Although females were extremely precious in the beast world, she did not doubt that this fellow would really swallow her up after counting to 3. Hence, Gu Mingming's brain activated a magical mode. Her brain worked rapidly in a muddled state, and following the demon's countdown, she activated her strongest brain mode. Demon 1. Gu Mingming. Demon 3. Gu Mingming, Tu Ming. The demon nodded and repeated, Tu Ming. Gu Mingming almost bit off her tongue. She originally wanted to ask, "Where's Tu?" But in the end, she called out Tu Ming instead. But seeing that the demon seemed to be satisfied with this form of address, Gu Mingming secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She felt as if she had escaped from a great disaster by accident. Demon Tu Ming. Gu Mingming answered bitterly. The demon smiled faintly, as if he felt that it was quite fun. Then he called out again, Tu Ming. Gu Mingming. This game repeated for at least 2 hours and Gu Mingming had the misconception that she was a pet dog being trained to remember her name. 2 hours later, the evildoer seemed to have finally answered the question. "Do you dare to answer when I call you?" Hence, he moved his body and used his tail to drag Gu Mingming out. Only then did Gu Mingming slowly recover from her fear and started to size up her surroundings. In the dark and damp cave, there was a faint sound of water dripping. There was no wind, and the air was humid and stuffy. If she had not inherited Elvis's night vision ability, she would have been completely blind here. There were many water droplet-shaped stalactites on the ceiling of the cave. They were round and glossy. The uncanny workmanship of nature formed a majestic and awe-inspiring scene. The sudden blinding light made Gu Mingming squint her eyes in discomfort. She wanted to raise her hand to block it, but unfortunately, she could not even move a finger. The demon swam for a long time before stopping by a lake. Looking at Gu Mingming, he was a little impatient, but still picked up a tree branch to start a fire. Chapter 527. After the fire rose, the demon frowned and took 2 steps back in disdain. He then looked at Gu Mingming and said, "I hate fire, you roast it yourself." Gu Mingming was on the verge of tears. "Mighty king, I can't move." The demon looked at Gu Mingming with the word trash written clearly in its eyes, but it still aimed the tip of its snake tail at Gu Mingming's mouth. Gu Mingming instinctively clenched her teeth and shut her mouth, but the demon suddenly moved its face closer and opened its mouth wide, frightening Gu Mingming so much that she screamed loudly. At that moment, the snake tail directly entered Gu Mingming's mouth. Gu Mingming felt something pricking her tongue. Then, There was a warm feeling spreading throughout her body, as if her frozen blood was starting to flow again. She gradually regained control of her body, from being able to curl her fingers, to barely being able to sit up straight. Gu Mingming gradually started to feel a sense of security. If I find out that you're trying to escape, I'll eat your partner first, then your pet, and then I'll catch you. The demon's voice was flat without any fluctuation, but Gu Mingming was so scared that she broke out in cold sweat. Twisting her neck stiffly, she forced herself to face this scary demon. She plucked up her courage and asked, "How are the 3 males that were with me?" The demon's eyes turned cold. He clearly did not like Gu Mingming mentioning other people in front of him, and had completely forgotten that he was the one who mentioned it first. Gu Mingming continued cautiously, "We don't have any ill intentions. They are just accompanying me to find my son." The evildoer said coldly, "I know." Gu Mingming tilted her head. "You know?" The evildoer snorted coldly and said, "Yes." Gu Mingming was clearly so scared that she wanted to escape, but she still gritted her teeth and moved closer to the demon, asking, "How are they now?" The demon was displeased and said, "If you ask again, I'll eat them all." Gu Mingming waved her hands and said, "I won't ask anymore, I won't ask anymore. Please don't be angry, Your Majesty." The demon used his chin to point at the pile of animal carcasses at the side and said, "Roast them. Eat them." Gu Mingming nodded, not daring to retort. Her husband and son were obviously in the hands of others. How could she dare to disobey? But when she turned around, Gu Mingming was dumbfounded. She was just a weak woman without the strength to even truss a chicken. Roasting a rhinoceros with her bare hands was something she couldn't do. The demon was behind Gu Mingming, and seeing that she was not moving, he urged, "Roast it quickly." Gu Mingming turned around and said softly, "I can't." The evildoer made a tisk sound. Then, with a face full of reluctance, it used its tail to roll up a huge beast, and used a thick branch to roast it over the fire. Gu Mingming watched as the fur curled up and turned black, giving off a pungent and unpleasant smell. Her stomach churned, but she did not dare to vomit. She could only pray continuously in her heart. "Damn, this thing that was scarier than Elvis's cooking. Please don't let me eat it." However, the beast deity clearly bore a grudge against Gu Mingming for pretending to be his daughter. The demon placed something 10 times bigger in front of Gu Mingming and said, "Eat." Gu Mingming asked in a trembling voice, "Can I not eat it?" The demon frowned and asked coldly, "You dislike me?" Chapter 528. After 2 mouthfuls of roasted meat, Gu Mingming fainted once again. The moment her vision turned black, she actually smiled, so damn blissful. This was simply a release. "Tuming? Tuming?" The demon's unhappy voice rang beside Gu Mingming's ears. But she was secretly happy, like a question, "I'm going to faint. Let's see what else you can do to me." Ha 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 ha. Time seemed to have stopped. Gu Mingming did not know how long she had fainted, but when she woke up from the urge to pee, the sky was already filled with stars. "Awake!" A cold voice rang above her head. This familiar feeling sent a chill down Gu Mingming's back, but she did not have the courage to turn back. If she were to see that gigantic snake that was as thick as a towering ancient tree, Gu Mingming had no doubt that she would pee on the spot. Say, "Sir, I want to go to the toilet. Can I?" The demon responded with a cold yeah, then added, "Finish it within 10 steps. If you go too far, I'll eat you up." Sigh. Gu Mingming put on a long face and tried her best to take the biggest stride. She successfully went behind a big tree on her 10th step and quickly finished her physiological needs before heaving a sigh of relief and standing up slowly. Lying on the tree trunk, Gu Mingming peeked her little head out secretly. Without a terrifyingly thick snake tail, there was only a handsome young man standing under the moonlight. His gaze was filled with evilness as he raised his slender finger and pointed at Gu Mingming. Then he flipped his palm upwards and hooked his finger. Gu Mingming shrunk her neck and walked out from behind the tree timidly. She took a closer look and confirmed that this fellow was indeed that demon. But after transforming into a human, he did not look as scary as when he was in his half-orc state. His body was well-proportioned and slender, Unlike Elvis's strong and muscular body, nor Lee's well-proportioned body, it was a type of muscle line that was in between Elvis and Leah. All the muscle fibers grew vertically, making his entire person look even more chiseled and beautiful. Strength and femininity were perfectly combined on his body, and the whiteness of his skin had reached a stage that made one's hair stand on end. Gu Mingming had the urge to poke him, because she felt that his skin was so good that a little force could poke a hole. The demon looked at Gu Mingming coldly, and accepted her stare calmly. After a long while he finally spoke. "You're not afraid of me anymore?" Gu Mingming was taken aback. She immediately lowered her head and maintained the posture of a little eunuch, saying, I'm scared, your majesty, you are wise and mighty. You have unified the world." The evildoer snorted coldly and stretched out his hand, palm facing upwards. Gu Mingming looked at the demon's hand in confusion, then raised her head to look at his eyes. The word dumbfounded was clearly written all over her face. The demon said impatiently, "Hand." Gu Mingming responded with an "oh." Then, like a dog being taught how to shake hands by its owner, she clenched her fists and placed them on the demon's palm. She was just short of sticking out her tongue and barking, "Woof woof woof." The demon's hand was long and huge. With his fingers slightly bent, he completely wrapped Gu Mingming's little hand in his own. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, as though he found it miraculous. Then he murmured softly, "So it really is hot. What?" Gu Mingming tilted her head and asked. The demon did not reply, and just pulled Gu Mingming deeper into the forest. Chapter 529. The demon brought Gu Mingming to the side of a deep pool, then used his chin to point at the hundreds of beasts in the pool, asking, "Which one do you like?" Gu Mingming stretched her neck to look down. "Did I go to the wild zoo?" This was simply a small-scale food chain, a microscopic animal world. Gu Mingming looked at the demon in surprise, asking, "Are you playing happy farming?" The demon looked at the deep pool, then back at Gu Mingming, saying, "Don't you all store food like this?" Gu Mingming was stunned for a moment, then asked back, "You know how to breed and breed?" The demon frowned impatiently, saying, "Choose quickly, which one do you want to eat?" Although Gu Mingming had not eaten for a day, but thinking about this man's dark cooking skills that were even higher than Elvis's, she shook her head firmly for the sake of her own life, saying, "My stomach is not feeling well today. I don't want to eat meat. I'll just eat some fruits." The demon twitched his mouth, saying, "Troublesome." As he said that, he still held Gu Mingming's hand, turning around to walk back. When they accidentally passed by a certain tree, they looked up. The demon said coldly, "Hindrance." Then, he kicked it nonchalantly. And then, the tree fell. Gu Mingming stared dumbfoundedly at the huge tree that needed at least 5 to 6 people to hug was kicked over just like that. She immediately decided not to provoke this man even if she was beaten to death. The demon walked to the top of the tree nonchalantly, pointing at the fruits hanging on the branches, saying, "Eat." Gu Mingming then understood that this man was acting to find food for her. Gu Mingming smiled obsequiously, saying, "Thank you, mighty king." With that, she was prepared to sit on the tree branch obediently to pick a few fruits to eat. But before she could take a step, she was pulled back again. Turning around, she met the demon's unhappy eyes, faking a smile, saying, "Mighty king?" The demon tightened his grip, saying, "Don't run away, I'll eat you." Gu Mingming shook her head, saying, No, I don't dare to run away. I'm just going to eat a few fruits." The demon did not say a word. He held Gu Mingming's little hand and walked to a tree branch. He bent his legs and sat down, then looked sideways at Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming's hand was being held by the demon, and it was impossible for her to sit further away. Hence, just when she wanted to sit beside him, the demon pulled Gu Mingming into his arms. He was still expressionless as he said, "My body is more comfortable." Gu Mingming smiled bitterly. "Damn it, I'm feeling uncomfortable." The demon raised his eyebrows. "Do you have an opinion?" Gu Mingming smiled apologetically and put on a cowardly look. No, completely not at all." Only then did the demon nod his head in satisfaction. He casually plucked a bunch of fruits that looked like grapes, but were obviously not grapes, and passed it to Gu Mingming. "Eat." Gu Mingming took the fruit with one hand and wanted to wash it. But when she saw her hand being held by the demon, she gave up. Holding the root of the fruit in one hand, he raised his head and bit into it. The tip of his tongue tasted sweet, and the juice filled his entire mouth. Gu Mingming nodded instinctively. After swallowing, she exclaimed, "So sweet." The demon looked at Gu Mingming from the corner of his eyes. He did not even know how gentle his expression was at that moment. How long had it been since he was interested in food? All the swallowing was out of instinct. But at that moment, he was very curious about the taste of the fruit that made her smile. Chapter 530. The corners of Gu Mingming's mouth twitched. Looking at the two shiny poisonous fangs, Gu Mingming's heart crumbled. Looking at the fruits in her hands feed? Not feeding. That was a problem. The demon seemed to be getting impatient from waiting. He frowned slightly and his eyes clearly said, "If you don't feed me, I will eat you." Gu Mingming immediately delivered the fruits to the demon's mouth. The demon imitated Gu Mingming and wanted to bite one into his mouth, but the moment his poisonous fangs touched the skin of the fruit broke immediately and juice splashed all over the demon's face. The demon frowned and wanted to get angry, but he saw Gu Mingming laugh out loud. His anger was mysteriously dispersed by her bright smile. The demon stuck out his tongue and gently licked the juice at the side of his lips. He frowned. What kind of disgusting taste was this? She actually liked this taste, so weird. But although weird, it did not seem so annoying. Gu Mingming held back her laughter and raised the remaining half of the fruits, asking, "Mighty King, do you still want to eat?" The demon turned his head away coldly and said, "You can eat it yourself." Gu Mingming did not know why. Maybe it was because the demon did not look that scary when he did not transform into a snake. Or maybe it was because the way he looked when the juice splashed all over his face was too comical. Or maybe it was because he did not do anything to hurt her even though he was awkward. Anyway, the guard in Gu Mingming's heart melted bit by bit. She felt that the demon was just not good at communicating with people. Although awkward and dangerous, he should not be too bad in nature. Or maybe, if she made him happy, he would return Elvis, Leah and her 3 sons to her? Thinking about this, a smile finally appeared on Gu Mingming's face. The demon kept looking at her from the corner of his eyes. Seeing her smile, the corners of his lips also rose unknowingly. Gu Mingming ate a lot of fruits, but there were still a lot left on that tree. She wanted to pluck some of the fruit back to eat tomorrow, so as not to waste it, but the evildoer refused to let go of her hand. When she showed the slightest sign of struggling, he threatened with a cold face, "If you dare to run, I'll eat you." Feeling helpless, Gu Mingming looked at the tree full of fruits with a pained expression. She was pulled back into the cave by the demon, who kept turning back every few steps. The demon found a flat spot to lie down, then pulled Gu Mingming into his arms. Gu Mingming did not dare to move. The demon frowned and said, "Do you want to sleep by yourself, or should I poison you till you faint?" Gu Mingming immediately shut her eyes tightly, wishing she could fall asleep. However, the more she wanted to sleep, the more she couldn't. In the end, she secretly opened one eye and whispered, "I've been unconscious for too long during the day. I can't sleep now." The demon frowned and said, "No sleep." Dejected, Gu Mingming stretched out her arm in front of the demon and said, "Then you can poison me till I faint, but please be gentle, I'm afraid of pain." The demon did not say a word, and just used his other hand to press down Gu Mingming's arm, then slowly placed his face on Gu Mingming's neck. Gu Mingming thought to herself, "What the heck? Vampire play?" Chapter 531. The prickling pain at the base of her tongue brought Gu Mingming back to her senses, and she frowned because of the discomfort in her body. Her eyelids were so dry that they hurt. Gu Mingming felt that if she opened her eyes now, her retina might be glued to her eyelids. A cool wetness slowly swept past Gu Mingming's eyes, relieving her discomfort at the right time. She tried to squint her eyes. There was no light, but it did not obstruct her vision. "Ooh," Gu Mingming moaned and rubbed her eyes. Looking at the side profile of the demon that was so close to her, her sleepiness disappeared instantly. She sat up straight as if she had stepped on an electric switch. You. The demon wiped the corners of his lips lightly and looked at Gu Mingming in disdain. You're awake? Gu Mingming touched her own eyes. They were wet. She felt a chill in her heart, thinking to herself, this lad looked so normal. But why did he have such a weird fetish? He liked to eat eye sockets? The demon held on to Gu Mingming's hand that was rubbing her eyes, then scrutinized Gu Mingming's face seriously. After a long while he said calmly, ugly. Ugh. It was as if a large knife had stabbed into Gu Mingming's heart. Yes, she was not as beautiful as Elvis, and the rest had described her to be. In the modern world, she would be average or even slightly below average. But there was no need to use the word ugly, right? Clenching her fists, Gu Mingming could only chuckle and say, You're the king, whatever you say is right. The demon took down a bunch of fruits from the stone table at the side and passed it to Gu Mingming, saying, Eat. Gu Mingming took a look and saw that it was the kind she had eaten last night. She stretched her head out to take a look and saw the same fruits piled up like a hill on the stone table behind the demon. Blinking her eyes, Gu Mingming asked, You kicked the tree again? The demon shook his head and said, There's only one such fruit tree. Gu Mingming was petrified on the spot, as if she was struck by lightning. There should be a limit to squandering, right? Orphan version. What the hell, an entire species was kicked to extinction just like that. The demon looked at Gu Mingming's weird expression and frowned unhappily. Yesterday, seeing how much she treasured them, he ordered the snake to pick all the fruits on the tree after she fell asleep. He had thought that she would be happy when she woke up. But why did she look like she was about to cry and seemed a little angry? TSK even uglier. Gu Mingming carefully held the bunch of fruits in the demon's hands, plucked one and sent it into her mouth, tasting it carefully. No seeds? Hiss. Gu Mingming was a little confused. She plucked another one. It was still seedless? No wonder there was only one fruit tree. The probability of producing seeds was too low. The demon hooked Gu Mingming's chin, frowning with a cold expression. Smile. Ah. Gu Mingming was dumbfounded, not understanding the demon's words. The demon's face was cold as he ordered, Smile. Gu Mingming grinned and forced herself to bare her teeth, smiling perfunctorily. The evildoer was impatient. He turned his head and said, So ugly. Gu Mingming raised her fist and really wanted to slap the back of this demon's head when he was not paying attention. But before her hand could touch his hair, the demon had already turned back to look at Gu Mingming coldly. Gu Mingming looked awkwardly at her hand that was frozen in midair. Then, she faked a smile and waved, saying, Hi. The demon snorted and did not respond to Gu Mingming's greeting. He just looked at her coldly and asked, Don't you like to eat this kind of fruit? I gave you so many, why are you still unhappy? Aside from the topic. Although everyone hates me, but I still appeared, Chapter 532. Gu Mingming sighed and said, There's only one such fruit tree. If you kick it down, I will never be able to eat this fruit again after eating all these in front of me. Is that worth being happy about? The demon looked at her coldly and laughed in disdain. My Snake King Valley doesn't have many other things, but there are a lot of fruit trees. According to your eating speed, I'm afraid you won't be able to finish all of them until you die. Gu Mingming smiled awkwardly and said, Then what if I don't like other fruits and only like this one? The demon raised his eyebrows and said, You dare? Gu Mingming really felt that she had never met someone so difficult to communicate with in her life. Seeing that he was so powerful, Gu Mingming could only say timidly, I don't dare. The demon's expression then softened, and he gave another bunch of fruits to Gu Mingming and said, Since you like it, eat them all. Gu Mingming shook her head and said, I can't finish all of these before they rot no matter what. Instead of letting them rot, why don't we leave some to eat and bury the rest? Maybe one of the fruits in this large batch will have seeds, and in that case, that fruit tree can grow again in a few years. The demon did not comment and just said coldly, Natural selection, survival of the fittest. If it goes extinct, it will only prove that it is an eliminated species. No matter how hard you work, how many can you save? Gu Mingming smacked her lips and said, If I can save one then it's one. The demon did not say anything more, and just held his head lazily, lying on his side, and watching Gu Mingming eat seriously. When she really could not eat anymore, he then held Gu Mingming's hand and activated the conjoined twins mode. Gu Mingming sighed in resignation and followed behind the demon, asking, "Where are we going?" The demon said, "To bask in the sun." Gu Mingming felt like she was really being raised as a pet dog. He fed her at a fixed time, and even brought her out for a walk after eating. Gu Mingming sat on a flat rock and accompanied the demon to bask in the sun. She lowered her head and stared at her own shadow in a daze. The demon held her little hand tightly and asked, "What are you thinking about?" Gu Mingming looked at the demon, and the question she wanted to ask got stuck in her throat. She did not dare to ask easily. Seeing that Gu Mingming wanted to say something but stopped, the demon's face turned colder and he said, "Thinking about your 6 wild men?" Gu Mingming choked and thought to herself, 6? Where did these 6 come from? She counted with her fingers: Elvis, Leah, Ian, Ah and Huda, Jiaoyu and Kanwu. F***K. All 3 of them were biological sons. Elvis was the original official and legal couple. Ian was just a subordinate, and there was no ambiguity at all. If they were to talk about wild men, Leah would be the only one. Gu Mingming was indignant, but she did not dare to rebuke the demon openly, so she could only mutter softly, "He's not a wild man." The demon flipped himself over and rode on Gu Mingming's back, pressing the top of Gu Mingming's head with one hand and holding her chin with the other. He squinted his eyes and exuded a dangerous aura, saying, "The males around you other than me are all wild men." Gu Mingming was indignant. "You're not even my man. What right do you have to say that?" The demon pinched Gu Mingming's face and covered her lips with his. He just stuck there and did not take any further action. After a long while, he slowly released her and said, "Now you are." Chapter 533. Displeased, the demon looked at Gu Mingming coldly and said, "All right, then I will first kill that wolf on your collarbone, then that fox, then that bird, and finally swallow those 3 little ones in one mouthful." Gu Mingming looked at Gu Mingming coldly. Gu Mingming felt a chill down her spine and she slapped the ground and stood up, saying, "If you dare to touch a single strand of hair on my hubby and children, I will fight you to the death." The demon sneered in disdain and said, "Even the 6 of them together can't beat me, and you, fight me to the death?" Gu Mingming was so angry that tears kept flowing down her face. She bit her lower lip and said, "Let me tell you, unless I die. Otherwise, no one can even think of hurting my hubby and children." The demon's eyes turned cold and he said, "Are you threatening me?" Gu Mingming was stunned and nodded. "Yes, I am threatening you, so what?" The demon stood up and approached Gu Mingming step by step. He watched as she staggered backwards until she had nowhere to retreat, and stared at him with widened eyes. He squinted his eyes dangerously, and his pupils were vertical. Gu Mingming could even see his poisonous fangs secreting venom in his mouth, and it was obvious that he was angry. She made up her mind. "So what if I die?" She straightened her neck and puffed out her chest, saying, "Anyway, if anything happens to my hubby and children, I don't want to live anymore. Why don't you just kill me directly, so that I won't feel as if my heart is being fried?" The demon's brows were tightly knitted together, as if he was hesitating whether he should just fulfill Gu Mingming's request and kill her. His long and cold fingers caressed Gu Mingming's jawbone. After a long time he finally spoke, "Snake." Gu Mingming's hair stood on end, and she stared at the demon for a long time without reacting. The demon glanced at Gu Mingming impatiently and said, "Stay in the Snake King Valley with me, and I will spare your wild men from death." Gu Mingming glared angrily and said, "I already said they are not wild men." The demon laughed coldly and said, "Do you want me to be a mistress?" Gu Mingming said, "I have nothing to do with you, all right?" The demon's face was gloomy and his gaze was cold as he said, "You slept with me, and you still say you have nothing to do with me?" Gu Mingming almost bit her own tongue. She suddenly felt that she could not explain herself. She scratched her head and said, "Who slept with you? At most, we're just kidnappers and hostages, okay? Give me back my husband and son, and we'll leave immediately." The evildoer's pupils became vertical lines. It was clear that he was extremely angry. He said darkly, "If you dare leave, I'll kill them right now." Gu Mingming sat on the ground shamelessly and kicked her legs, asking, "Then what exactly do you want?" The evildoer moved his jaw, as if he was suppressing the anger in his heart, and said, "You stay with me. I'll release your wild man and save your son." Gu Mingming looked up and asked, "You have a way to save my son?" The evildoer sneered and said, "Is there any poison in this world that I cannot cure?" Gu Mingming jumped up from the ground and grabbed the demon's arm tightly with both hands. "Then please save them. They are still children and have been unconscious for a long time. If we delay any longer..." The evildoer was not moved and only said coldly, "I'll save them, you stay." Gu Mingming bit her lower lip. Using her little life in exchange for the safety of her 4 sons was always worth it. Chapter 534. The demon stretched out his hand with his palm facing upwards, gesturing for Gu Mingming to hand over her little hand. Gu Mingming had no choice but to give herself a line of "hold me up," before obediently placing her little hand into the demon's hand. The demon was finally satisfied, and his pupils gradually returned to normal. He looked down at Gu Mingming and said, "Snake my name." Gu Mingming replied, "Oh." Snake was displeased and said, "My name is not O." Gu Mingming put on a fake smile and said, "Great King Snake, I wish you happiness as boundless as the East Sea and longevity as everlasting as the South Mountain." The corners of Snake's lips curled up slightly, and he said, "Say it again." Gu Mingming called out "Snake" repeatedly for half an hour like a repeater before she finally managed to please this master. He happily pulled Gu Mingming into his arms and said, "I am a man of my word. I will bring you to meet your wild men, and let you personally confirm that I let them go." You are willing to let me meet them?" Gu Mingming's eyes were as bright as a deer's, and she could not suppress her smile. She looked as if she was glowing. Snake was dazzled by Gu Mingming's smile, and felt a little jealous. He turned his face away coldly and said, "Stop smiling, you're so ugly." Gu Mingming covered her mouth with her hand and nodded in agreement. "I won't smile, I'm really ugly." Snake brought Gu Mingming around half of the valley, and arrived at the entrance of a cave. Groups of colorful snakes crawled all over the ground outside the cave. Not to mention a place to land. Even a mosquito would not be able to find a place to land. Gu Mingming had a natural fear of snakes, and she had goosebumps all over her body. She instinctively hid in Snake's arms, and this small action pleased Snake. He did not say a word and did not slow down. He just walked straight ahead. The groups of snakes automatically opened up a path for Snake to pass through. After he passed through, they closed up again and sealed off the path of retreat. After entering the cave, Snake placed Gu Mingming on the ground, but he refused to let go, and just held on to her little hand tightly. Gu Mingming immediately saw Elvis and Leah, who were lying unconscious on the ground, as well as Ian, who had been thrown to the side and could not return to his human form. "Hubby, Leah, Ian." Gu Mingming wanted to run over to check on their injuries, but Snake held her hand tightly and did not allow her to go over. Gu Mingming turned back to look at Snake. "You promised to let them off." Snake raised his head and said, "If you care too much about them, it will make me want to go back on my word." Gu Mingming froze on the spot and shook her head. I don't care at all. Don't go back on your word. Hurry up and save them." Snake's face darkened. He pulled Gu Mingming into his arms and locked her tightly. He pulled her little face towards his chest, and then transformed his lower body into a snake beast. He raised the scales on his snake tail, and made a small cut on Elvis, Leah and Ian's bodies. He then retracted his tail and transformed back to his human form before releasing Gu Mingming slightly. She could turn around to look at the 3 of them, but she was still unable to leave his arms. Elvis frowned and let out a soft sound. Gu Mingming was overjoyed and shouted, "Hubby, hubby!" Chapter 535. This weak call almost made Gu Mingming cry. She instinctively wanted to pounce into Elvis's arms, but was hugged tightly by Snake. A cold and emotionless voice rang beside her ear. To me, it's easier to kill them than to save them. Gu Mingming did not dare to act rashly. She could only look at Elvis from a distance that was just a few steps away, but could not be crossed. Hubby, how are you feeling now? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Elvis forced himself to sit up and shook his head, trying to regain his composure as soon as possible. After panting heavily, Elvis then realized that Gu Mingming was in the arms of another stranger. Her little face was full of tears, and it made one's heart ache. Elvis bared his teeth. He wanted to stand up and attack Snake to snatch Gu Mingming back. But Snake snickered and swung his snake tail to sweep Elvis away. Elvis was like a broken doll that was thrown against the wall. Then his whole body fell down. A huge hole was smashed into the wall. Some gravel fell onto Elvis's body. Elvis coughed, and a mouthful of blood flowed down from the side of his lips. But he gritted his teeth and stood up again. He swayed and rushed toward Snake. Snake squinted his eyes. With an obvious murderous intent, he said coldly, courting death. The snake tail swung again, but stopped less than a meter away from Elvis. Snake frowned and looked down at Gu Mingming, who had buried her face in his arms. He called out coldly, "Tu Ming." Gu Mingming looked up at Snake with her mouth full of blood. Tears streamed down her face, and the corners of her lips drooped. She said in a nasal voice, "I won't allow you to hurt my hubby. I won't." Snake looked at the wound on his arm where a piece of flesh had been bitten off. He turned to Elvis with a dark face and swung his tail down without hesitation. Then he scooped Gu Mingming up into his arms. He gritted his teeth and said, "Stupid woman." Before he finished his sentence, he had already dashed out of the cave towards a waterfall. Snake threw Gu Mingming into the waterfall and kept pouring water into her mouth. Then he pressed his fingers against her throat to force her to vomit. Only when she had vomited out all her bile did Snake carry her ashore with furrowed brows. He started a fire and dried her wet body. Gu Mingming's brows were still tightly furrowed, and she shut her eyes tightly. Her entire body was burning hot, but she hugged herself and shouted that she was cold. His face was ashen, and his lips were purple. It was obvious that he had been poisoned. Snake transformed into a half-orc and wrapped himself around Gu Mingming. Then, he pried open her mouth and stuck his snake tongue into her mouth. Inch by inch, he cleaned up the blood that she had accidentally swallowed just now along her throat. Even the air exhaled by the 1,000-year-old Snake King was poisonous. This stupid woman had bitten through his skin and swallowed his blood. She was really courting death. For thousands of years, no one had ever dared to offend him like this. She was the first one, and also the only one. According to his temperament, he should have just left her on the spot and watched as her body festered to death because of her own stupidity. But just by seeing her frown, he actually felt that it was difficult to breathe. Chapter 536. Mighty Snake King. A clear male voice rang from the other side of the waterfall. Snake did not turn back to look at him, only saying coldly, "Scram." Cole was not angry, he just maintained his usual calm tone and said, "Mighty Snake King, don't be angry. I just want to give you a suggestion. That snow fox might be the best candidate to take care of this little female." Snake glanced at him coldly and laughed sinisterly. "Do you think that fox can cure me of my poison?" Cole lowered his head and said, "Of course not. Only you can detoxify your poison. But females are different from males, their bodies are too weak. If they don't nurse themselves well, they might not be able to hold on." Snake's beast pressure exploded, instantly suppressing Cole. He carried Gu Mingming up and turned to leave, not even giving Cole a supercilious look. Back at the cave, the huge pile of fruits had already been buried according to Gu Mingming's instructions. No one knew if new fruit trees could grow, but the cave was clean. Snake circled Gu Mingming with his tail, forcing the poison out of her body over and over again. The purple on her lips had already faded, but her face was still green, and she remained unconscious at first. He could still feed her some water, but later on, she could not even pry open her teeth. The tighter Snake hugged her, the more she trembled. In the end, Snake could only place Gu Mingming on the stone platform before instructing a little snake to find Leah. When Leah dragged his weak body into the cave, he saw a barely breathing Gu Mingming curled up on a stone platform. Snake stood far away, staring at Gu Mingming without blinking. Gu Mingming's body trembled. Leah did not greet Snake, because he had nothing to say. As a third level, he was weaker than an ant in front of a beast king. He did not want to waste his breath saying some heroic words. He wanted to make the best use of every second to take good care of Gu Mingming. Carrying Gu Mingming in his arms, Leah transformed into a half-orc and used his large tail to wrap Gu Mingming up tightly. He used his tongue to lightly lick Gu Mingming's little nose, gently rubbing against her ear, using a deep and affectionate voice to whisper into her ear. Mingming, I'm here. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. You have to hold on, okay? You promised that you wouldn't leave me alone. Snake clenched his fists tightly behind him. He also wanted to hug Gu Mingming like that. But this damned body did not have the same warmth as that fox. His blood was cold, and no matter how tightly he hugged her, he would never be able to warm her at all. Leah pressed his face against Gu Mingming's face gently, caressing Gu Mingming's arm while saying, I need Elvis to help me. I can't make Mingming recover by myself. Snake frowned and said, Just tell me what you need. I can also satisfy you. Leah sneered and glanced sideways at Snake. Elvis is her first partner. The sense of security he can give her is something that no one else can replace. Snake's pupils trembled and turned into a vertical line, before slowly returning to normal. He stuck his tongue out at the entrance of the cave. Not long after, Elvis was also brought over. Chapter 537. Elvis furrowed his brows tightly and hugged Gu Mingming in his arms, whispering softly, Xiaoming, I'm here, I'm here. Leah stood up and walked to Snake's side saying, I need prey. Please allow me to hunt in the Snake King Valley. Snake did not say a word, and just gave a look to the little snakes behind him. Not long later, many little snakes carried their prey and swam in, stopping in front of Leah. Leah checked the prey one by one, and his expression became more serious, asking, You're giving Gu Mingming this to eat? Snake was displeased, saying, This is the best prey in the Snake King Valley. Leah pointed to a hole on the prey's body, saying, Your hunting method is to inject poison into the prey's body to make them lose their ability to resist. This poison is nothing to you, but it will take Gu Mingming's life. Snake was taken aback, as if he did not think of this detail at the start. He frowned and muttered, No wonder I vomited so badly the last time. If Gu Mingming was sober now, she would definitely complain. Brother, I vomited so badly the last time because you roasted me with your skin and hair, alright? It had nothing to do with poison. No. Snake looked at Elvis, who was hugging Gu Mingming, feeling increasingly irritated. His chest was so stuffy. Maybe going out to hunt was a good way to relieve it. Thinking about this, Snake said with a cold face, You stay here to take care of Tu Ming. I'll go out to hunt. Leah did not comment. This was someone else's territory. If Snake did not nod, no matter how capable he and Elvis were, they would not be able to hunt any edible prey. Moreover, Snake's presence felt weird. Leah was more than happy for him to get out. Snake turned into his beast form the moment he left the cave, his body like a train, driving straight into the depths of the forest. He originally wanted to vent his anger, but he instinctively avoided those fruit trees that were on the verge of extinction. Damn it! Snake stood in front of a fruit tree, and really wanted to use his tail to break this obstacle. But the image of Gu Mingming's regretful and heartache towards the pile of fruits kept appearing in his mind. After swinging his tail twice, Snake still went around that fruit tree, and continued forward. Meanwhile, in the cave, Elvis and Lee's hearts were extremely heavy. As males, they knew too well what the difference in power meant. In the afternoon, they could still lie to themselves that Snake seemed to be very interested in Gu Mingming. If he just wanted to mate with Gu Mingming, they would not object to having another Beast King level member in their family. Even if she wanted Elvis to hand over his position as the first partner, Elvis would personally end her with a smile on his face, giving up the position to this perversely powerful Snake King. Because with him around, no one in the entire beast world would have the ability to hurt a single strand of Gu Mingming's hair. But it had only been half a day since they last met, and look at how much Gu Mingming had been tortured by him. Elvis hugged Gu Mingming tightly, his brows furrowed as he asked, "If we escape, what are the chances of success?" Leah glanced disdainfully at the colorful snakes blocking the cave entrance and said, "These snakes are just wild beasts, but they are extremely poisonous. With my abilities, I won't be able to take more than 5 steps if my skin is scratched. You're a little better than me. You can probably run 10 steps. Chapter 538. It's no use. Leah patted Elvis's shoulder and signaled him to retract his beast pressure. They are snakes that have been following Snake around all year round and are long used to the Beast King's coercion. Our normal coercion is completely useless in front of them. Elvis remained silent. Seeing how weak Gu Mingming was, his heart ached to the extreme. He could only ask in a low voice, "Then what do we do now? I'm afraid Xiaoming can't hold on." Leah caressed Gu Mingming's little face gently. He then looked at Elvis and asked, "How's your stamina now?" Elvis looked at Leah from the corner of his eyes, waiting for him to continue. Leah said, "The poison has caused the blood in Xiaoming's body to start coagulating. You have to let Meng Meng's blood flow, so that the antidote Snake placed in her body can take effect. But you were just beaten up by Snake. Can you still hold on?" Elvis clenched his teeth and smiled bitterly. "Even if I can't just let Xiaoming die like this." Leah pursed his lips and said, "If you really can't hold on, I can do it." Elvis stared at Leah for a moment and smiled. "I won't let Xiaoming mate with you against her own will." Leah nodded. "Then I'll stand guard at the side. Hurry up and finish it before Snake returns, in case he goes crazy and hurts Gu Mingming." Elvis nodded and carried Gu Mingming to the deepest part of the cave. He removed his beast skin dress and laid it under Gu Mingming's body. He then gently removed her dress and kissed her fragrant shoulder. He whispered into her ear, "Xiaoming, do you know? I love to see you become emotional because of me. So, if you can do it, respond to me, alright? Compared to this quietness, I love it even more when you hug my neck and say you love me." Elvis's kiss traveled up Gu Mingming's collarbone and finally covered both of her lips. His nimble tongue forcefully pried open her tightly clenched teeth. Before he could conquer her territory, his mouth was filled with the taste of blood. Elvis groaned in pain but refused to retract his tongue. He sucked on Gu Mingming's lips and used his blood to nourish her body. It had only been 2 days, but Gu Mingming had obviously lost so much weight. Snake must not have taken good care of her. She probably had not eaten anything these few days. The blood of a level 5 beast was very nutritious. If he could help Xiaoming regain some of her strength, even if his tongue was bitten off and he bled to death, so what? Elvis caressed Gu Mingming's arm with his big hands, trying his best to help her circulate blood. His big tail swept Gu Mingming's legs, trying his best to take care of every part of her body. But even so, Gu Mingming did not respond at all. She just laid there quietly like a porcelain doll that had lost her soul. She shut her eyes tightly, frowned, and her teeth chattered. Elvis turned all his energy into love and gave it all to Gu Mingming. Then, he suddenly lost all his energy like a toy whose battery had been depleted. He laid on Gu Mingming's body and lost consciousness. Leah smiled bitterly as he dealt with the aftermath. He first carried Elvis to one side, then used a beast skin to wipe Gu Mingming's body clean. Then, he hugged her tightly in his arms, using his own body temperature to maintain Gu Mingming's body temperature that had risen after much difficulty. Even though the lingering aura on her body was torturing him physically and mentally, Leah only wished for her to be alive at this moment. Just living in peace would be enough. Aside from the topic, do I still need to explain what is in the ellipsis? Come, verify the group number, 4927799273. Chapter 539. When Snake dragged his prey, whose bones had been crushed inch by inch back, he sharply sensed the dispirited aura in the cave. With his eyes straightened, he attacked Elvis at lightning speed. "If you kill him, Gu Ming won't be able to live." Leah spoke calmly, finishing the last word just as Snake's fangs were about to touch Elvis's artery. The blood vessels on Snake's face flowed rapidly, and his lower body was in the shape of a snake. One could almost see the snake's scales rising slightly. He wanted to kill Gu Mingming without a care in the world. But when his gaze landed on Gu Mingming's face, which was no longer ghastly pale, he recalled the words she said when she bit him in the day, and the tearful look on her face. Snake forcefully stopped his attack, and slammed his thick tail onto the ground, creating a pit. The plump prey was thrown at the entrance of the cave, and Snake swam out of the cave to vent his anger wantonly in the valley. An ancient tree was uprooted, and the tree trunks were crushed into sawdust by Snake's tail. But in the end, none of the destroyed trees were fruit trees. Leah placed Gu Mingming in Elvis's arms, and even though Elvis was unconscious, he still hugged Gu Mingming tightly. And Gu Mingming also tilted her head slightly, pressing her face against Elvis's chest, listening to his heartbeat. He was sleeping so peacefully. Leah dragged his weak body to deal with the prey. He looked at the little snakes guarding the cave entrance, and tried to take a step forward. The little snakes did not stop Leah from leaving, so it was obvious that Snake's instructions were only for Gu Mingming alone. That was good too. Leah carried the prey out of the cave, and instinctively found a water source to wash and deal with the prey Snake brought back. This fellow should have always swallowed them alive. This hunting method of crushing the bones and stabbing them into the flesh was too perverted. Leah could almost imagine how Snake had been thinking about how to vent his anger when he was hunting. Shaking his head helplessly, he carefully removed every piece of bone from the meat, and then cut the meat into pieces. By the time Leah settled everything and returned, Elvis had already woken up, and was staring at Snake with widened eyes. Perhaps the radiation from the collision of their gazes was too strong, causing Gu Mingming to feel a sense of pressure. Frowning, she moaned and felt a gush of warmth licking her face. Gu Mingming squinted her eyes, and when she saw Elvis's face, the corners of her lips could not help but curve upwards. She lifted her arm that was as heavy as lead, and hooked it around Elvis's neck. Using the force, she flipped her body towards Elvis, and found a relatively comfortable position to nestle in Elvis's arms. She murmured, "Hubby, I had a weird dream just now." Elvis kissed her hair gently and asked, "What did you dream about?" Gu Mingming's throat was a little dry and she coughed softly. Leah passed over a cup of water at the right time, and Elvis drank a small sip before passing it to Gu Mingming with his lips. After moistening her throat, Gu Mingming continued, "I dreamed that I could not move no matter what. I clearly heard you calling me, but I could not respond to you. Then, I even did something shameful." Elvis chuckled and rubbed Gu Mingming's waist, saying, "Silly, that was not a dream." Chapter 540. Gu Mingming instinctively opened her arms to protect Elvis, looking at Snake warily, not daring to say a word. The pain all over her body, as if she had been run over by a car, told her what she had just experienced. But it was not illegal to sleep with her own husband. Why did she feel as if she was caught in the act? Gu Mingming turned back to look at Elvis, nodding her head in confirmation. That's right. The one she slept with was her own husband. Seeing how Gu Mingming was protecting Elvis, Snake felt even more frustrated. He hooked his finger and said, "Come over, or I will kill them." Gu Mingming bit her lower lip, using the beast's skin to wrap herself up tightly, supporting her exhausted body to slowly take a small step towards Snake. Snake frowned, hooking his finger in his direction, gesturing for Gu Mingming to come closer. Gu Mingming turned back to look at Elvis, taking another small step towards Snake. Snake's patience had run out. He raised his snake tail and whipped it towards Elvis. Gu Mingming could not react in time. She reached out and pounced towards Snake's snake tail, wanting to use her own body to block this attack. Elvis's reaction was much faster than Gu Mingming's. Before the snake tail touched Gu Mingming, he turned around and protected her in his arms, using his own back to receive Snake's tail. Snake himself was also shocked by Gu Mingming. He held back much of his strength. If not, this whip would have directly split Elvis into two. Elvis spat out a mouthful of blood. Gu Mingming was so anxious that she cried, holding on to Elvis tightly, shouting, Leah, quickly come and look at Elvis." Leah walked forward, pulled Elvis out from Gu Mingming's arms and placed him at the side, then held onto Gu Mingming's shoulders with both hands. Looking straight into her eyes, he said calmly, "Don't do such things in the future, understand?" Gu Mingming had no idea what Leah was talking about. She just wanted Leah to quickly treat Elvis. So she nodded perfunctorily. I know. Leah saw through Gu Mingming's perfunctory act. He sighed, then said in a serious tone, "Do you know that you almost scared Elvis and I to death when you were poisoned this time? If anything happens to you, we won't be able to die in peace. If we still have any weight in your heart, promise me that you will prioritize your own safety under any circumstances. As long as you're fine, the two of us can definitely pull through. Do not expose yourself to danger for anyone. Do you understand?" Elvis clutched his chest as he looked at Gu Mingming. His gaze was clearly the same as Li's. Only on this point he would not indulge Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming nodded and said, "I know, I promise I won't do it again. Hurry and take a look at Elvis, he's badly injured." Leah then released his grip and turned around to check on Elvis's injuries. Elvis gave her a reassuring smile, wanting her to believe that he was fine, and that he was fine. However, his body was badly mutilated, and his face was ashen. With a single glance, one could see that he was weak and fragile. How could a smile be able to deceive the world? Snake's snake tail was trembling as he resisted the urge to attack. Narrowing his eyes, he used his tail to wrap Gu Mingming up and swam out of the cave. The night sky was as dark as ink, thick and heavy, but it could not conceal the fierce anger emanating from Snake's body. Gu Mingming felt as if she could see black smoke billowing from Snake's body. Digression. It's time to say goodbye to my babies again. Chapter 541. Where are we going? Gu Mingming asked timidly. Snake stopped in his tracks, but did not turn back to look at Gu Mingming. To where? He had not thought about it either. He just did not want to see Gu Mingming and Elvis being so lovey-dovey in the cave again. So he brought Gu Mingming out before he killed Elvis. Snake, about biting you in the day today. I'm sorry, I apologize. Gu Mingming decided to be a good girl, who was brave enough to admit her mistakes. Seeing Snake's back stiffen, she shivered and immediately tried to excuse herself. But that was because you hurt my hubby first, so I bit you in a moment of desperation. As the saying goes, the one who provoked me first is cheap. You are also half responsible for this. Snake took a deep breath, turned his head and said with a black face, "Don't ever mention your wild men in front of me again, or else I have 10,000 ways to make you watch me tear them apart. And you won't even be able to hurt yourself." Gu Mingming knew that Snake definitely had that kind of ability. Elvis might be strong outside, but in front of a pervert like Snake, the difference in their abilities was too great. Even someone like Gu Mingming, who did not really understand what the hierarchy meant, could tell that this was like a WDO wrestler beating up a primary school student. I won't mention, then don't be angry." Snake's face was cold as he stretched out a hand, palm facing upwards. Tu Meng. Gu Mingming reflexively placed her hand in his palm, then smiled bitterly. She was just like a domesticated pet dog. Snake held Gu Mingming's little hand, then his emotions calmed down. He slowly kept his snake tail, and transformed back into his human form, pulling Gu Mingming into his arms, hugging her before letting go. Gu Mingming felt a little awkward. She pointed at Snake's arm and asked, Does the wound still hurt?" Snake looked down at the wound that had already healed completely and frowned. How did it heal so quickly? If it had not healed, would she also look at him with the same gaze she used to look at Elvis's wound? Snake thought for a moment, then placed his hand by his mouth, sticking out his poisonous fangs and biting down. What are you doing?" Gu Mingming was shocked, and reached out to grab Snake's arm. But Snake dodged backwards and said with a cold face, "My blood is poisonous, you can't touch it." Gu Mingming retracted her hand awkwardly, and took a small step back. She stretched her neck and pointed at Snake's arm. "Your teeth are poisonous too, right?" Snake nodded and said, "Deadly poison." Gu Mingming thought for a while and asked, "So is your teeth more poisonous, or your blood more poisonous. But, if you show symptoms of being poisoned, which poison should I detoxify first? Do you have the antidote? Give it to me in advance. Snake was stunned for a moment before he suddenly laughed. Are you an idiot? How did I get poisoned by myself? Gu Mingming stared at Snake in a daze and smiled. Isn't this great? He looked good when he smiled. Why did you have to keep a straight face all day long? As if someone owed you $8 million. Why bother? Snake was stunned by Gu Mingming's words. He reached out to touch the corner of his lips. He was actually really smiling. Nice to look at? Snake asked carefully. Chapter 542. When Snake brought Gu Mingming back to the cave, Elvis and Leah had already disappeared. Gu Mingming wanted to ask, but she did not dare to open her mouth when she saw Snake's "if you dare to ask, I will kill them immediately" expression. But looking at the roasted meat that was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, Gu Mingming felt much more at ease. Other than Leah, no one else could roast meat of this standard. He still had the mood to roast meat, which meant that he and Elvis were at least safe. With this understanding, Gu Mingming felt much more relaxed. Once she relaxed, Gu Mingming also started to feel hungry. After all, she had only eaten a little fruit for the past 2 to 3 days. Gu Mingming squatted beside the roasted meat, looked at Snake and asked, "Is this for me?" Snake replied with a cold "yeah," then sat at the side and watched Gu Mingming eat heartily. Snake did not know why, but he just felt that the food in Gu Mingming's hands was exceptionally delicious. So he leaned closer, opened his mouth and said, "Ah." Gu Mingming looked at Snake's pleading expression and did not know whether to laugh or cry. Why was this fellow's personality so polarizing? When he was angry, he could not differentiate between friend and foe, and was unreasonable. But when he was calm, he could look so cute and arrogant, making people speechless. Gu Mingming tore off a piece of roasted meat and sent it into Snake's mouth. Snake chewed it seriously, then swallowed it. It was quite delicious, right? Perhaps there was no taste of meat, and it was not as fresh as eating immediately after being slaughtered. It was also a little hot. The texture was really ordinary, but when paired with Gu Mingming's smiling face, it seemed to have a chemical reaction, making it so unpalatable and unique. Gu Mingming stared at Snake's face for a long time, but could not tell whether he liked it or not. Or did he not like it? "Do you still want more?" Gu Mingming asked. Snake shook his head and said, "You eat, I will watch you eat." Gu Mingming did not stand on ceremony with him. This was prepared by Leah for her. Gu Mingming's mood improved as she ate the roasted meat in big mouthfuls. After Gu Mingming was full, Snake sat beside her and asked, "Are you afraid of snakes?" Gu Mingming nodded her head honestly and said, "I'm not afraid of many animals, but snakes are definitely at the king level. When I went to the zoo, there was a picture of a huge python with a human. As long as I saw it, I would run away and not dare to challenge it. Just the thought of a snake touching me makes my whole body uncomfortable. Hey look, even my hair is standing on end." Snake looked at the hairs on Gu Mingming's arms that were standing up straight, and he was a little disappointed. Wolves are also very ferocious animals. Why don't I see you being afraid? Gu Mingming smiled. Who says I'm not afraid? You don't even know how scared I was the first time I saw Elvis's original body. I almost fainted. For a very long time, I always felt that Elvis and Leah were keeping me as a reserve food and would eat me anytime. Upon hearing Gu Mingming's words, Snake felt much better. In the future, will you slowly stop being afraid of snakes? Snake asked. Gu Mingming thought for a while and shook her head. Not sure I am really. I'm not afraid of snakes. Snake frowned and asked, Are you afraid of me? Gu Mingming did not answer but asked back, Do you want me to be afraid of you? Snake remained silent for a long time and did not reply. He just looked at Gu Mingming quietly. Aside from the topic. Chapter 543. Gu Mingming felt pressured by Snake's stare. She smacked her lips and sorted out her words before saying, Actually, you are quite nice when you are not angry. Although you are a little awkward, you are not hard to get along with. But when you are angry, you are definitely possessed by a demon king. It is too scary. Snake looked at Gu Mengmeng and suddenly smiled. It is good that you know to be afraid. Don't provoke me in the future. Gu Mengmeng cupped her fists and said, All right, mighty king. Snake was amused by her comical look, and the lump of stuffy air in his chest slowly dissipated. He cleared his throat and asked, Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere else? Gu Mengmeng seriously felt around and said, I just feel that I do not have much strength. Everything else is fine. Snake said, You were the one who bit me, but you still had to ask me to save you. Why are you so useless? Gu Mengmeng was speechless. She turned her face to the side and refused to talk to Snake. Snake stretched out his hand and shouted, Tu Meng. Gu Mengmeng reflexively placed her hand on Snake's and was instantly held. Gu Mengmeng really wanted to give herself a slap. Where was her dignity? Where was her dignity? Snake smiled faintly and said, It is finally warm again. Gu Mengmeng glanced sideways at Snake's cold face and asked, Today must have made you worried too? Snake's expression froze and he said, No. Gu Mengmeng could not help but laugh. She did not expose him or go along with him. She just looked at Snake. Snake cleared his throat and said, I saved you because I have something to ask you, so I cannot let you die for now. Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, What do you want to ask? Snake was silent for a moment before he slowly opened his mouth and said, I want to know, that world of yours, what is it like? Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. She asked tentatively, You mean the world of the beast deity? Snake shook his head and said, I know that you are not from the beast world, but another independent world. The people there do not know how to transform, and know many strange things. But their physiques are extremely weak. Not to mention orcs, even ordinary wild beasts can easily kill them. Gu Mengmeng's expression gradually lost control as she looked at Snake with a heated gaze. How did you know? Snake looked back at Gu Mengmeng and said, My mother beast is the previous messenger of the beast deity. Cough, cough, cough. Gu Mengmeng choked and coughed until her face turned red, and she could not say a word. Your mother is a joker, but you're a freakishly strong Sundara? This gene had mutated, right? Wasn't the difference too big? Tu Meng? Snake's expression was rather solemn. He wanted to pat Gu Mengmeng's back to soothe her breathing, but he realized that the spot where he had bitten himself was still bleeding. He retracted his hand forcefully, and could only watch as Gu Mengmeng coughed like a dog in front of him. Wait a minute. Gu Mengmeng finally stopped coughing, and turned to look at Snake. The previous messenger of the beast deity is your mother, so? Leader, how old are you this year? Snake cleared his throat and said evasively, About, over 1,000 years old. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.